Excuses are termites, quiet, small, and relentless. They chew your plans until there's nothing left to rebuild. Determination is the carpenter who shows up with a hammer, a plan, and stubborn hands. One leaves you hollow, one builds a life you can live in. Decide which one moves into your house. A life of excuses does not collapse in a single night. It rots in slow, polite stages. You miss the morning when you promised to rise. You postpone the conversation you know you must have. You keep the tools in the shed and tell yourself you'll learn tomorrow. Those tiny concessions feel harmless at first, a polite nod to comfort, and yet they carve hollows in your character that no later resolve can easily fill. The person who once wanted to be whole finds, years later, rooms that echo with what-ifs. That is the work of termites. They are relentless because they are unnoticed. Now imagine the carpenter. He does not arrive grandly. He comes before the sun, knuckles stained, a blueprint folded under one arm. He listens to the bones of the house, probes the foundation, measures twice and acts once. He patches a beam here, braces a joist there. His work is steady, unromantic, stubborn. He knows the value of a single nail driven straight. He understands the patient craft of building something that stands. Determination is not a one-day show. It is a lifetime trade. This is the choice you face each morning. Will you feed the termites with excuses? Later, not yet, one more. Or will you hand your life to stubborn hands who will work when the applause is absent? Consider the small things: an unread book on a bedside table, a promise to practice a craft that gathers dust, a ledger of bills you avoid opening. Those are more than clutter. They are evidence of a life politely surrendered. The carpenter sees them and sets to work. He knows that 1,000 small repairs make a fortress. Excuses dress themselves in respectable clothes: fatigue, timing, lack of resources. They seem reasonable. Determination looks less glamorous. It looks like routine, like frostbitten hands and calluses, like the refusal to answer a tempting plea to slacken. Yet it is determination that makes a man dependable, a woman trustworthy, a family secure. It is determination that saves a business from ruin, shapes a character from chaos, and turns an ordinary day into the brick of something lasting. You are not condemned by your past. The house can be repaired if someone will work. But repairs require presence. They require you to admit the damage, to name the rot, to fetch tools rather than excuses. Start with a single task. Keep one promise to yourself today, and do it without fanfare. Show up for the thing you said mattered. Sharpen the tool you've let dull. Speak the hard sentence you have avoided. Small, honest acts are the nails that hold a future together. This is a speech for people who are tired of nice-sounding plans and hungry for craft. If you want a life that can be lived with pride, you must choose the carpenter's work over the termite's comfort. Decide now who you will invite into your house. Will you live among polite decay, always explaining why you never began? Or will you let determination move in, hammer in hand, sleeves rolled, heart steady, and build the rooms your grandchildren will praise? The hidden cost of excuses. Excuses arrive like unpaid bills slipped beneath the door, quiet, unremarked, and then suddenly they are a ledger that cannot be closed. Each excuse is a small withdrawal from the bank of your future. One skipped promise here, one half effort there, one explanation given in place of action. Taken alone, they seem harmless. Taken together, they are bankruptcy. There are 3 debts excuses charge against you. First, they steal time. A postponed promise becomes a habit of postponement. The hour you could have spent learning, repairing, or speaking the truth is given instead to explanations. Time does not return with apologies. It marches on, and excuses collect like sediment until your life's river runs shallow. Second, excuses sour your name. People forgive error, but they do not forgive the habit of avoiding responsibility. A man who always has a reason for not doing the work, quietly, loses trust. A woman who habitually delays her best effort teaches others not to rely on her. Reputation is the currency of opportunity. Excuses spend it without deposit. Third, excuses smother possibility. Each reframed failure as not the right moment or circumstances closes a door forever. Opportunities are like trains. They sound distant long before they arrive. Standing on the platform making excuses is no substitute for boarding. When you habitually dodge the hard step, you educate fate to pass you by. Notice how small the acts are that cause this ruin. The unread page of a book, the unmade call to a mentor, the loaf of bread not set aside for tomorrow. These are tiny gestures of surrender, yet like rust on a chain, they seize motion until once active limbs can barely move. Excuses do not typically explode, they corrode. There is another cost, subtler and crueler, inner poverty. Excuses shrink the soul. A man learns to speak a smaller truth to himself. A woman begins to live in half measures. The mind trained to avoid discomfort loses the muscle to endure it. The heart accustomed to excuse loses the appetite for risk. Before long, the person who once dreamed of more finds their horizons trimmed to fit the safe room they have built around themselves. Now consider the bill that finally comes due. It is not always dramatic. There is no single debtor's knock. It is the quiet recognition at 50 that your hands are empty of the things you swore you would create. It is the grandchildren asking where your stories are, and you do not have many to tell because you spent the years explaining away the work. This is not to heap guilt without remedy. The cost of excuses is great, but it is also payable in honest labor. A single act of resolve redeems more than you imagine. Keeping the promise to yourself for one day, then another, answering a difficult question honestly, finishing one task you began. These are small deposits that begin to reverse the ledger. So measure your life not by the explanations you can offer, but by the remedies you begin. Notice the tiny thefts. Call them by name. Close the door on the habit of excuse and open the door to steady work. The house that excuses hollowed out can be rebuilt, but only with the slow, stubborn labor of choosing action where once you chose reasons. The first strike of determination. There is a sound that begins every rebuilt life, a single decisive strike. It is not thunderous, it is precise. The tap of a hammer finding a nail, the rasp of a chisel meeting wood, the first stroke that marks a beginning. That first strike matters because it changes a posture of wishing into a posture of working. Until that sound is made, aspiration is only a rumor in the house of your life. The first strike makes it true. Determination's first strike is small and public only to yourself. It is the morning you keep the promise to rise, the page you write when you promised you would, the single call placed to a teacher, a tradesman, a hard truth. It is rarely heroic in the moment. It is more like someone deciding to put a key in the lock and turn. But once turned, the door moves, and motion invites more motion. Do not wait for a thunderclap of resolve. The beginner's hammer does not break stone, but it scores it. It creates a weakness that persistence will finish. That first act need not be grand. Choose something a child could do and do it with the stubbornness of a veteran. Make the bed. Sit at the desk for 10 minutes. Deliver the sentence you have been avoiding. Each modest blow is an instruction to your mind. We act now. There is a craft to the first strike. Prepare the tool, name the task, remove excuses from the room, set a time and honor it as if a neighbor's life depended on it. Show up with intentional hands. If you miss, and you will sometimes, do not let the miss become an excuse. Return the next day and strike again. The rhythm of honest tries makes habits loyal. The first strike also has a social power. It breaks the spell that tells you are waiting for better conditions. Others notice steadiness more than flash. One visible act of resolve changes how the world treats you. People begin to trust a man who finishes the simplest thing he began. Trust begets opportunity. Opportunity begets more work to be finished. Finally, remember this. Beginning is not proof of success, but it is the only possible path to it. The first strike is a promise to your future self, a small loan you give to the years ahead. Over time, those loans compound into mastery and meaning. So pick up the hammer now. Make the noise that tells your life you mean to build. Discipline, the daily proof of resolve. Discipline is not spectacle. It does not thunder across a room and leave a trail of applause. It is quieter, a steady metronome hidden inside the chest of a person who means to finish what they began. If courage opens the door, discipline is the steady foot that refuses to leave the threshold until the house is built. It is the proof, day after day, that your will is not a passing fancy, but a way of life. Think of a potter at a wheel. The first turn is clumsy. The clay wobbles. With patient repetition, the form begins to hold. The potter does not rely on a single burst of energy. He returns again and again, shaping the same lump until it becomes useful. That exact scene is discipline. The return to the table, the willingness to repeat small corrections, the refusal to be satisfied with half-formed work. Discipline signs quiet contracts with tomorrow. It is the promise you keep in private, to rise when the body wants to linger, to study when the eyes ache, to speak a truth when silence would be easier. These private acts are not glamorous, but they are irrevocable. Each one is a mark in the ledger that tomorrow reads, "This person can be counted on." Reputation, strength, and freedom grow from those marks. Do not confuse discipline with mere routine. Routine is mechanical. Discipline is moral. Routine can be performed without conviction. Discipline requires a decision to be better than yesterday. It chooses refraining where indulgence calls, choosing work where leisure tempts. Discipline is the hand that steadies the plow when the field looks endless. It is the voice that answers, "I will," when excuses murmur, "Not today." There will be days when discipline feels barren, effort that brings no immediate reward. Those days are the kiln where character is tempered. The quiet labor is comparable to a clockmaker's slow, exact work. Tiny adjustments unseen by most, but essential, so the clock will keep time for generations. The harvest arrives not because of a single season of toil, but because of steady work across many seasons. Discipline compounds. Keep one promise to yourself today, keep another tomorrow. Over months, the accumulation makes you different. People begin to refer to you as dependable. Doors open because others know what to expect. Life becomes smaller in excuses and larger in capacity. The question now is simple. Will your life be governed by the moment's comfort or by disciplined fidelity to a future you respect? If you answer discipline, then begin this very day with one faithful act. No flourish, no announcement, just proof. Endurance, when the fire burns low. Endurance is not the same thing as an early burst of courage. Courage is the first step. Endurance is the long walk after the light has faded. It is the thing that keeps a man working when applause has died, when the ledger shows red, when the lamp at your desk has only a sliver of oil left. Endurance is the patient craft of carrying on, not because the moment looks promising, but because your work matters more than your comfort. Picture a field in late winter. The gardener who plants only when the sun is bright will never know the harvest of spring. The gardener who endures the frost, who prunes, waters, and waits, will stand among abundance. Endurance does not require feverish zeal. It requires steady care. It is the slow tending of embers until the fire has breath enough to blaze again. Endurance is practical, not poetic. It asks three things of a person: steadiness of pace, economy of strength, and the skill of repair. Steadiness of pace means you do not sprint every day and then collapse. You learn to walk a tempo you can keep. Economy of strength means knowing when to conserve and when to spend. Rest is part of the ledger of labor, not its enemy. Skill of repair means you mend what breaks. A heart discouraged, a body weakened, a plan off course. Little repairs prevent catastrophic failure. There will be nights when the work feels pointless. There will be storms that wash away months of careful progress. In those hours, endurance becomes stubborn tenderness. Tenderness toward the cause, stubbornness against surrender. It is not the foolish refusal to change course, but the fierce refusal to be defined by a single setback. The person who endures learns to alter methods without abandoning purpose. Endurance keeps company with faith in small things. It measures victory in inches. An extra page written, a saved dollar, a conversation had instead of avoided. Those inches add up. The craftsman who files metal for years does not notice the shape on any given day. But one morning he looks, and the thing stands finished. That is the arithmetic of endurance. Finally, endurance is a moral posture. It refuses the cheap comfort of explaining away failure with excuses. It says instead, I will repair, I will return, I will show up. It understands that great things are rarely won in gold medal moments. They are won in return visits to the workbench when no one is watching. When the lamp gutters and the house grows cold, do you snuff the wick or do you tend it? Endurance is the hand that reaches for the oil. It is quiet, patient, relentless. It does not guarantee ease, but it guarantees that in the end, you will have earned what you keep. Sacrifice, trading comfort for strength. Sacrifice is not a punishment handed down by fate. It is a trade, deliberate, sober, and brave. Think of it as exchanging immediate ease for tomorrow's muscle. The person who wants to be stronger, wiser, richer, or kinder must be willing to give up something smaller today so the larger thing can take root. That is the plain arithmetic of a life that grows. Comfort courts you with soft pillows and flattering excuses. It whispers that safety is worth more than effort, that pleasure now is payment enough. But comfort is a counterfeit coin. It buys pleasure in the moment and robs your future of buying power. Sacrifice, by contrast, is honest currency. You hand over what tempts you today so that you can withdraw from tomorrow's bank with interest. Do not confuse sacrifice with reckless self-denial. There is a nobility in prudence. Real sacrifice is chosen, not forced. It is not the desperate giving away of what you need. It is the disciplined setting aside of what is unnecessary. It might mean fewer evenings of idle chatter so you might learn a craft. It might mean a simpler supper this month so you can buy a tool that builds work for years. It might mean saying no to a pleasing comfort so you can answer a deeper call. Picture a blacksmith at his forge. The metal must be heated, hammered, and bent before it becomes a blade. The work is hot and exhausting. It demands time, sweat, and patience. But without that heat and those blows, the metal remains raw and useless. Sacrifice is that heat. It tempers your resolve, shapes your character, and turns raw desire into something that can be used to protect and provide. Sacrifice also has a cunning companion, clarity. When you decide what you will give up, you discover what you truly prize. Renouncing shallowness reveals depth. Turning down a short pleasure exposes a long aim. Every refusal, every small deprivation done for purpose, chisels away distraction and leaves the essential silhouette of your life. There will be days when sacrifice feels cruel. You may hunger for what others possess easily. There may be nights when you question whether the price was worth paying. In those hours, remember this: sacrifice is an investment, not a sentence. The cost you pay is temporary. The strength you buy lasts. The mother who skips a luxury now to buy her child an education sees that gift return across generations. The apprentice who forgoes ease to learn an old craft holds advantage when the easy jobs vanish. These are traded comforts that compound. Yet be wary of vanity sacrifice, the kind that is performed to be seen rather than to be effective. Genuine sacrifice is private, often unseen, and it does not demand applause. It is the quiet habit of declining what would divert you, so you may take up what will define you. Finally, sacrifice must be steady. One dramatic renunciation does not a life make. The work is not a single chisel blow, but a series of careful strikes. Small, consistent choices, the penny saved, the hour kept, the promise honored, assemble a life of strength. Over time, the pattern of sacrificial choices becomes your character and your fortress. So ask yourself plainly, what comfort will you decline today so that you may gain strength for tomorrow? Choose wisely, because every relinquishment writes the terms of your future. Trade with purpose. Let your small denials be deposits into a life that will return abundance when the season of harvest comes. The reward of a built life. At last comes the quiet hour when the scaffolding is lowered and you step into a house that you made with your own hands. The reward of a built life is not a single festival of praise. It is the steady, ordinary mornings that prove the work mattered. It is waking with a chest that does not ache with regret, with cupboards that hold what is needed, with a ledger that shows care rather than chaos. The built life looks plain to strangers, but to you it is a fortress of earned calm. Rewards arrive like the long seasons of a well-tended field. grain that fills the bins, fruit heavy on the branch, roots that hold fast through storm. They are the result of patient choices stacked on patient choices. The man who learned his trade in silence now finds his labor respected. The woman who kept a promise to herself now finds doors open because others know she finishes what she begins. These returns are practical: competence, choice, and the quiet power to act instead of asking permission. But do not mistake ease for reward. True reward is not that the work becomes needless. It is that the work now supports you. Where once you were anxious at the first sign of trouble, you now have reserves of skill, of savings, of friends who trust you, because you prepared. You sleep without the small, sharp stabs of worry that come from undone obligations. You wake with the dignity of someone who has paid the bill on time. There is also a social recompense. The life you build becomes a pathway for others. Children inherit not merely things, but habits. Neighbors learn to rely on a steady hand. Apprentices receive the quiet passing of craft. Your example becomes a map for those behind you. Legacy is not always marble and monuments. It is the useful tools left in a workshop, the stories told at a kitchen table, the calm advice given when a young person stands uncertain at the crossroads. Perhaps the most profound reward is inner restitution, a clear conscience, a fewer number of if only. Regret shrinks when you have a record of honest effort. You do not need the applause of strangers because you have the approval that matters. You have lived up to your own standard. That steadiness becomes a form of freedom. Freedom to choose work that matters, to refuse what does not, to spend time with people that enrich rather than drain. With reward comes responsibility. A built life calls for stewardship. Maintain what you made, teach what you learned, and do not hoard advantage, but use it to widen the road for others. The man who secures his harbor must also keep the light burning so ships can find safe passage. Reward without stewardship is brittle. Reward used well becomes the foundation for a fuller community. So look at the work you have done and see not just what you have gained, but what you are now able to give. The built life is quiet, sturdy, useful. It will not always be admired, but it will be relied upon. It offers warmth in winter and a table to set at the end of a long day. That is the reward, a life you can walk into with your head held high and a heart that knows you paid the price. Final honest word: wishes whisper, work answers. Do one small honest thing today. Do it without fanfare, and do it again tomorrow. Over time, those quiet repetitions will become proof no one can argue with. Live so your later self thanks you, not blames you.